Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the free legal advice show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host Ilyas Bulbulia and I'll be with you for the next hour. As our regular viewers are aware, the free legal advice show provides you, our viewers, the opportunity to call in and ask us any questions that you have on any aspect of English law. On this show, I should be able to cover a vast, diverse range of matters ranging from immigration law matters, family law matters, criminal law matters. So whatever your legal questions are, please feel free to pick up the phone and give me a ring on the landline number that appears at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, you can send me a message, a text message, WhatsApp message on the mobile number, which also appears at the bottom of the screen. A couple of minor points before we get going. Obviously, on a live show, it's not possible to take very detailed information from viewers who call in. If it transpires that your matter is quite complex and I need to speak to you in a lot of detail, then I'll ask you to leave your number with the control room and I will have that more thorough discussion with you off air. If it transpires that I need to look at your documents before I can advise you further, for example, you might have received a refusal letter from the Home Office or a solicitor's letter, and you want me to have a look at the letter and advise you properly on that, then I will ask you to send that document in and I will have a more thorough discussion with you after I've managed to look at that document. And as always, this is a service that we provide as part of the free legal advice show. And if I need to speak to you after the show, have a more thorough discussion with you, or if I need to look at your documents and then advise you, because it's part of the free legal advice show, you won't be charged anything. Any advice that we provide will be completely free of charge. As I've said before, two ways you can get in touch with us. First of all, you can give me a ring, have a live discussion with me on air on that landline number 01924 231 083. But as always, and this is a very popular way of getting in touch with us, you can send us a message on that mobile number 07585 835 150. I'll get your WhatsApp message sent through to me live in the studio here, and I will be able to address your question live on air. If it transpires that there are other issues that arise as a result of my answer, or you need further clarification, then by all means you can send a follow-up message to me, or you can give me a ring and we can have that more thorough discussion live on air. Now, as always, we've had a number of questions coming in, and even as far as immigration solicitors are concerned, a lot of immigration solicitors have been busy over the last couple of weeks dealing with one of these issues, which is quite topical at the moment, which is relating to family members who are in Afghanistan. So in practice, we have been receiving a lot of queries on that, 5-10 queries a day from individuals who are concerned about their family members who are abroad in Afghanistan. And even today, we've received a number of messages on our mobile number as well relating to that issue, the issue relating to family members of British citizens who are in Afghanistan. And the majority of the questions which have been coming in are either in practice at work or by WhatsApp message on our mobile number, relate to how family members who are in Afghanistan in the current situation, how they can relocate to the United Kingdom. And over the last couple of weeks, people would have been following the news. They would have heard the announcements being made by the UK government about how the UK government will assist in relocating certain people from Afghanistan to the United Kingdom. And we would have heard numbers such as 20,000 people potentially being resettled in the United Kingdom over the next few years. And it's that which we've seen on the news and the announcements which have been broadcasted by the Home Office relating to potentially 20,000 people being resettled in the United Kingdom, which has prompted all these queries about how can family members relocate to the United Kingdom. Now, I'm going to address that in a detail because it's a complex matter relating to British citizens, relating to family members of British citizens, and those who are vulnerable, those who have assisted the UK government. Different categories of people, and it's a complex matter which I will address in a lot of detail. But we do have a caller online, so let me take that call first. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम सलाम। अलियास क्या ठीक हो?
जी अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह ठीक है, आप कैसे हो? ठीक हो?
अलियास भाई, मेरा 2-3 क्वेश्चन है। एक क्वेश्चन ये है कि वर्क परमिट का क्या तरीका है? वर्क परमिट आदमी पाकिस्तान से इधर मंगवाना हो तो।
जी ठीक है।
एक मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है। एक मेरा फ्रेंड है, उसने इधर शादी की है, ब्रिटिश बॉर्न, उसकी वाइफ है, उसका एक बच्चा भी है, 2 ईयर ओल्ड है उसकी उम्र, ठीक है। तो क्या कि वो आदमी जो है वो उसका बच्चे का बाप क्या कि वो वीजा अप्लाई भी कर सकता है या नहीं कर सकता?
जी ठीक है।
तो तीसरा मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि स्टूडेंट अप्लाई करना, उसका क्या प्रोसीजर है?
जी ऑलराइट, ओके। ये जो वर्क परमिट का जो क्वेश्चन आपने पूछा है ना, तो जो यहाँ आना चाहता है उसका बैकग्राउंड क्या है, वो काम क्या करता है?
वो बैकग्राउंड वर्क परमिट, वो उधर काम करता है, एक यानी इंजीनियर है
जी,
बहुत अच्छा उसका काम है, लेकिन वो इधर वर्क परमिट आना, इधर अपना बिजनेस करना चाहता है,
यहाँ यूके में आकर काम करना चाहता है,
यूके में अपना बिजनेस करना चाहता है।
जी जी ठीक है, नो प्रॉब्लम है। थैंक यू वेरी मच आपका क्वेश्चन के लिए। आप सुनते रहो, मैं आपको फिर ये क्वेश्चन का जवाब देता हूँ।
थैंक यू
वेरी मच। So a couple of questions, sort of slightly different questions relating to immigration law. First question relates to work permits. The second question relates to somebody who is an overstayer in the United Kingdom but has a relationship in the United Kingdom and now has a child who is 2 years old and the child is British. Third question is a broad question relating to what the position is with students who want to come to the United Kingdom. So let me address those 3 questions very quickly. First of all, the question about work permits. Now, certainly from January 2021, it's been much easier to sponsor people to come to the United Kingdom in order to work. There's been a substantial change in the work permit scheme. It's now known as the skilled worker visa, and there's been significant changes. One of the biggest changes is previously the difficulty with the scheme was that only highly professional people were allowed to come to the United Kingdom under that scheme. So generally speaking, you had to be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, quite a senior engineer before you could qualify to come to the United Kingdom under the old work permit scheme. That's changed significantly. Now you can come to the United Kingdom where the job you're going to be doing has a skill level which is much lower. So if I can give you an example, previously, at the very least, the job had to be regarded as graduate level work. So that's why only certain people could come to the United Kingdom. Now, the skill level has dropped. Now, in terms of academic equivalence, we're looking at jobs which are around the A-level standard. So it's skilled work, which now qualifies under the skilled worker scheme. So previously, it might have been doctors and senior engineers who qualified. Now, under the current scheme, it's possible to get a visa if you are, for example, a skilled upholsterer, or if you are a skilled builder, etc. So you can see how the skill level has dropped from professional level work to skilled work. There is still a requirement that the job you come to do has to be skilled level. So it can't be a very basic job. That wouldn't qualify under the new work permit scheme. So somebody who's coming to do that job potentially can get a skilled worker visa. But the key thing here is this, that there has to be an employer in the United Kingdom who sponsors the person to come to the United Kingdom. So you can't come to the UK simply to look for work. So what the caller was saying is that he has a relative who's an engineer, who is an experienced engineer, wants to come to the United Kingdom. Now, the job that they will potentially be doing in the UK will be at the appropriate skill level. But the problem is you can't come to look for work. There has to be a business that sponsors you to come to the United Kingdom. That business has to be registered with the Home Office. that business has to go through a number of checks before it can be registered with the Home Office. And it's that business that will sponsor this individual to come to the United Kingdom. So that's the key thing you need to remember. It's the business which is registered with the Home Office, which sponsors the skilled worker to come to the United Kingdom. But it is much easier than the scheme that existed in 2020. So hope that answers the question about the work permit scheme. The second question was in relation to somebody who has overstayed in the United Kingdom, but has a relationship and has a 2-year-old child who is British from that relationship. Now, although the person has overstayed in the United Kingdom, there is a potential for that person who has overstayed to apply for leave to remain in the United Kingdom and to regularize their stay. And the basis of the application will be that they are either living with the British child, who is 2 years old, or alternatively, if they are not living with the child because the child lives with the mother, for example, then at the very least, they are having regular contact with the child. So there is a possibility of obtaining leave to remain where there is a child that is a British citizen. So generally speaking, somebody who has overstayed in the United Kingdom would find it difficult to go into any other visa category. They can't go into the student category. They can't go into the skilled worker category. They can't just marry and apply for leave to remain. However, the exception is that where an overstayer has a child and the child is British, then potentially the person who's overstayed can get leave to remain in the United Kingdom based on that British child. Now, obviously, there are documentary requirements which need to be fulfilled, but there is an avenue there to regularize one stay in the United Kingdom. So hope that answers that question in relation to the relative who is an overstayer in the United Kingdom. The last question related to students is a complex matter which I will address after we come back from our break. See you then. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. To contact me and to speak to me live on air, please ring on the landline number which appears at the bottom of the screen, 01924 231 083, and you'll be able to speak to me live on air. Alternatively, another very popular way of getting in touch with us is to simply send us a message on the mobile number which appears at the bottom of the screen. That message will come through to me here live on air, and I will be able to address any questions that you have on any aspect of English law. Just before the break, we had a caller who put a number of questions to us. First question related to the new work permit scheme. Second question related to somebody who's overstayed in the United Kingdom but has a child who's British. Both of those questions I addressed before our break. Final question that was put to me related to the new scheme for students who want to come to the United Kingdom in order to study. Quite a broad question, quite a general question. Let me just go through it very quickly. Obviously, if following the answer that I provide, there are more specific issues that you need addressing, then please do feel free to get in touch with me. Now, the issue in relation to students really is twofold. And I think student visas are relatively straightforward if we address two separate, distinct issues. Firstly, when one is looking at obtaining a student visa to come and study in the United Kingdom, the first point we need to consider is that that person will need to find a university who will sponsor them to come and study in the United Kingdom. So won't necessarily pay their fees, tuition fees, sponsor them in the sense that they will be responsible for issuing them with a certificate of acceptance of studies, who will say that this person will be coming to study at a university here. They've been given admission to a particular course at the university. That's the key thing, because it's not possible simply to come here and then to look for a university to join. You have to have been accepted at a university prior to applying for a visa to come to the United Kingdom. So if I give you an example, somebody who wants to come and study for medicine, they would need to obtain a place here at a university, whether it's an undergraduate course or if they are following further study, a postgraduate course in medicine, then they would need admission at a university to follow that particular course. So the key point, the key issue is for a prospective student is, are you able to gain admission at a university to follow a course here at a UK university? That's going to be the key point, because if there is no university that's prepared to sponsor you in the United Kingdom, then there's no possibility of coming to the United Kingdom as a student in general terms. So the first issue is you have to obtain a place at a university here in the United Kingdom. And obviously, as you would expect, the university will do its own investigation, own analysis as to whether the person is able to study in the United Kingdom. They'll look at their English ability, they will look at their qualifications, look at their ability to follow a course here, because they are concerned, as is the Home Office, as to whether the person applying to join their university is genuine or not. The responsibility is on the university to ensure that they only sponsor genuine students. So they will be looking at the application properly. And it's only where they are satisfied that this person will come and study in the United Kingdom properly, they'll follow this course, will they be prepared to say, look, we are sponsoring this student to come to the UK. So a university place is the first matter that needs to be dealt with. The second matter is finances. So it may be possible to obtain a university place, but that in itself isn't enough. You have to be able to obtain a place at a university and be able to afford to pay for it. So if I give you an example, typically if you're following an undergraduate course here in the United Kingdom, typical fees will be in the region of about £14,000, £15,000. Science subjects may have a slightly higher fee, but generally speaking, a lot of the courses will have a fee around the £14,000 mark. So the prospective student will need to have that amount of money in their bank account or in their parents' bank account so that they can pay for the tuition fees. It's understandable that if you've been given a place, there's no point you getting a visa if you're not able to pay for that course. And the typical cost for that course is around £14,000. In addition to that, what the Home Office also looks at is whether the student who's coming to the United Kingdom to attend university here, whether the student has enough money to maintain themselves in the United Kingdom without recourse to public funds. Again, understandable. What the university will do is give you a place, but in terms of finances, that's a separate issue. Do you have enough money to pay for the course and for your living expenses in the United Kingdom? Now, it is right that a student will be able to work in the United Kingdom part-time. But if you look at it from the Home Office's point of view, there is no guarantee of a job, of employment, of being able to earn money as far as the student is concerned. So that's why the Home Office wants to be satisfied that not only do you have enough money to pay for your university fees, you've got enough money, if you don't get a job, you've got enough money to pay for your expenses at least for the first year. And there's a way of calculating how much you need to show for your maintenance. Now, a couple of factors that the Home Office will take into account in terms of working out the amount. First of all, they will look at the length of the course. And secondly, they will look at whether the university where you will be attending will be a university in London or whether it'll be a university outside of London. Different rates apply depending on where the university is. But as a rule of thumb, in terms of maintenance, you will need in the region of £10,000 in terms of maintenance. So you've got, on the one hand, university fees, which come up to about £14,000, and then you've got the maintenance element, your money that you will need to look after yourself in the United Kingdom. That comes up to something in the region of about £10,000. So if you combine that, what you find is a prospective student will need savings in their account or their parents' account of about £24,000. So they're the two main issues that you need to address. On the first hand, the main point is that you must obtain a place at a university. The second point is you must have enough savings in order to pay for the tuition fees, in order to look after yourself financially, at least for the first year in the United Kingdom. So they are the two main issues which need to be addressed. Now, if you manage to get over that hurdle, if you have a place at a university, or if you have enough savings, then you are more or less there in terms of being able to apply for a student visa to come to the United Kingdom. Now, we've got a number of questions coming in. I think the next question that's come in is an immigration question. Let me read the question out and then let's address that. Question is, my wife arrived here in the United Kingdom on a spouse visa. She needs to go back to Pakistan to complete her university course. Please advise as to how long she can stay in Pakistan to avoid her visa being void. Her visa is up for renewal in 2023. So it is a question relating to somebody who wants to study, but slightly different from the matter we were just looking at. Now, this is somebody who has obtained a spouse visa. So the wife who was originally in Pakistan come to the United Kingdom in order to join the husband who's here. However, the slight difficulty here is that the wife needs to go back to finish her course. A common issue. It may well be that they've done the first 2 years of their course, they've got another year left, they want to graduate. Obviously, they've put all the hard work and effort in, and they don't want to leave things up in the air. Problem now is that they've managed to get the spouse visa and they're now in the United Kingdom. What happens if they go back? How long can they stay out of the UK for? What impact will there be on their visa? Now, let me address it this way, that once the visa is granted, once the spouse visa is granted, it is valid for 2.5 years. Now, it's not going to be cancelled, so you shouldn't worry about that. It's not going to be cancelled. Because practically, if you think about it, the Home Office really doesn't know where the spouse is anyway. But in any event, the Home Office is not concerned about that. This is not a case of marriage breakdown where they do get involved and they cancel the visa. The visa is not going to be cancelled. That's the first point. Second point is this. There is no limit as such in terms of absences from the UK. The problem will arise when not when she applies for the extension, but really when she applies for indefinite leave to remain 5 years down the line. When the Home Office looks at the application and they see that there's a high level of absence from the UK, what the Home Office may say is that we will only count a residence from when she actually came back to the UK and started living in the UK properly. So they may disregard the period where she spent a lot of time abroad. So it may mean that after 5 years, she's actually only spent 4 years in the United Kingdom, and the Home Office may say, we're not prepared to grant you indefinite leave to remain at this stage because, you know what, in the first year, you were hardly here. Now, having said all that, if you can manage it, let's say your wife is able to stay out of the UK for around 4 months, 5 months in the first year and then get her course done. She might get away with it. She might be able to include the whole year in the 5-year calculation. However, if she isn't able to do that, she needs to be out of the country for 9 months, 10 months, etc. I think then there's no problem at the extension stage. She comes here, you show that you're now living together, she will get the extension. But at the indefinite stage, when you apply, when you tell them the absences, the Home Office might turn around and say, you know what, at the initial stage, the absences were too substantial. So they may say that, you know, after she came back to the UK and really settled here again after the first year or so, they will only count the 5 years from that date. So it's an issue really at the indefinite leave to remain stage. Hope that answers your question. If you're not sure, please give me a ring and I will clarify that issue with you. We're taking a short break. We'll be back in the next couple of minutes. Welcome and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. To speak to me live on air, please ring on the landline number which appears at the bottom of the screen, 01924 231083. But as always, if you want to send me a message, you can do so on that mobile number which also appears at the bottom of the screen. Okay, let's take our next call for the day. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Hello.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. Thank you for calling. What's your
Sorry,
question?
I'm just having some difficulty to hear you because the volume is so low.
All right. It might be that you're close to your
question.
Okay, sorry, go on. It might be that you're close to your TV, so if you just move away from there, you might be...
I'm not close to the TV. I'm in the kitchen.
Are you? Right. Okay, fire away then.
Okay. The question I have is so my father has a property and he wishes to transfer it into my name.
I understand.
Or gift it to myself. I don't know the legality of it. Okay. Now, there is inheritance tax that could play part.
Yep.
However, I'm capable of lending myself into mortgage as well.
Okay.
But because I'm not so sure about the law, what is the best process to transfer the property from father's name into the son's name?
Okay. Is there a mortgage on the property at the moment?
Yes, there is an outstanding mortgage, yes.
Okay. And in terms of, you see, the difficulty is this. Okay, when there is a mortgage on the property, obviously it's not possible simply to transfer the property from dad's name to your name because the mortgage company is involved in this as well. So the mortgage company wouldn't necessarily consent to that transfer because the mortgage is held with your dad. Would you be able to obtain or pay the mortgage off or obtain another mortgage to pay dad's mortgage off?
Okay.
Because that's going to be the first issue. You won't be allowed simply to transfer, or dad won't be allowed to simply transfer the property into your name because there's an existing mortgage there. If dad tries to transfer the property into your name, the mortgage would have to be paid off first. So that's the first issue. Now, that problem doesn't arise where there's no mortgage. Then there's no mortgage company there that has an interest. Then it's just a transfer between family members. Then the only thing that you look at is potential tax implications, whether there are any tax implications or not. Now, so the first issue here is it may not be possible simply to transfer. In practice, what would happen is that you would have to pay the mortgage off, or your dad would have to pay the mortgage off before the transfer occurs. Now, it may be that means you're effectively buying the property from your dad, getting a mortgage yourself, and paying off the old mortgage, which is what normally happens, depending on the size of the mortgage. So that's going to be the first issue that needs to be dealt with.
Understand.
Now, let me give you an example. Let's say the property is worth 150 and the mortgage is about 150. Then it's a simple case of you obtaining a mortgage and really buying the property from your dad. So that's what would happen normally. In terms of inheritance, I mean, let's say the property wasn't transferred to you, it was left as it is, and the dad made a will transferring the property to you. That's fine. You'd look at the inheritance tax thresholds, whether the dad's estate was within the nil rate band or whether the estate was too large and fell outside the band. So, but again, the issue really here is that you wouldn't be able to get the property until your father passed away. If you needed to sort things out now, you would have to look at transferring the property in your name after paying the mortgage off. I mean, both possibilities are fine. You can have the property transferred now if you get the mortgage and pay the old mortgage off, or you can leave things as they are, and upon death, the property can be transferred to you. There'd be no tax implications if the estate is less than the threshold. It could be what, 750 or something in that region, what the threshold is at the moment. But I think the key issue here is the mortgage issue. You may not be able to do what you're thinking of doing unless that mortgage is paid off.
It's been paid off, I see.
Right. Does that answer your question? Or
It does. I mean, my question is roughly based on the property was purchased, let's just say, for example, 50K.
Yep.
And property's value now is 150.
I understand. Yeah.
And the remaining mortgage is probably about 40, let's just say.
I understand. Yep.
So I'm happy to get the mortgage to myself and pay the rest of it off, but it won't be a lump sum into. So it'll be gradual paying into it.
Okay.
Does that stop me doing so? I understand if this gets transferred under the son's name, there is a 7-year implications of the tax rebate. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would happen is they would look at it as if you paid 50,000 towards it and you've managed to get the property, £100,000 for free, basically. But I mean, that's what you've got here. That's what the dad's transferred to you, property at the value of around £100,000. Then if your dad was to pass away within 7 years, then that £100,000 would be part of your dad's estate when it comes to calculating inheritance tax. But it depends again as to when your dad passes away. So it's tapered. So if your dad passes away around the 7-year mark, then it may be that not the whole amount goes into the estate, but there is a risk that a certain amount of money that you've gained at this stage would go into the estate, and the calculation as to the value of the estate would include that transfer, the £100,000 that you've sort of gained here at the outset. So there is a possibility that could happen. But in the end, it's going to really depend on what your dad's estate is going to be worth. If we're looking at an estate in the region of 300, 350, 400, then there may not be an issue at all anyway. But if it's a significant estate, then this transfer now, where you're benefiting by about £100,000, could be subject to inheritance tax later on.
Okay, understand.
Okay.
Brilliant.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for that question. Brilliant. So that's a question relating to a property transfers which take place now and potential inheritance tax implications. Now, just before the break, one of the questions that I addressed briefly was a question which was arising regularly in practice, which is relating to the situation in Afghanistan, and more particularly people who have family members in Afghanistan who want to resettle in the United Kingdom, where they want to join their British families in the United Kingdom. A lot of questions centered around whether anything could be done to try and help close family members to come to the United Kingdom. And I think what prompted a lot of these questions really was obviously what was happening on the ground in Afghanistan. But not only that, I think more so because of the announcement that the UK government made, saying that the Home Office would have a scheme in place whereby up to 20,000 people would be eligible to resettle in the United Kingdom over the next few years. Now, listening to that, it was quite understandable that a lot of family members in the UK felt that there might be a way to sponsor their children, their parents, their uncles, brothers to come to the United Kingdom. They wanted to find out whether they could fall within this announcement that had been made by the UK government. So a lot of questions were being put to lawyers. A lot of questions were coming through on WhatsApp relating to that. So what is the true situation in terms of those who want to come to the United Kingdom who currently are in Afghanistan, or they might have fled to neighbouring Pakistan? What is the situation with them? How can they come to the United Kingdom? Well, the reality is this, that you do need to look at which category the family member falls into. And I think that really determines what can be done. But we do have another caller online. Let me just deal with that and then come back to this issue relating to Afghan family members. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, brother, thank you for calling. What's your question? Hi, you're live on air. What's your question, brother?
I just wanted to find out about immigration law.
That's fine.
Regarding a person that came from Pakistan about 12 years ago.
Okay. That's fine, yep. So what's the specific question, brother, relating to that? I've got that. Somebody came here 12 years ago.
Right, he came here about 12 years ago on a space visa. He's only recently found out that he's got no stay on his passport.
Okay.
He separated from his wife about 6 years after the marriage.
Right.
He thought that he had his stay, basically.
Okay. Does he have any children from that?
No, he's got no children from that relationship.
All right, I understand.
No children at the moment.
I understand. So, when he came on that spouse visa, did they never apply for leave to remain? In those days, he would have qualified for indefinite leave after 2 years.
After 2 years, yeah, I'm aware, but he wasn't aware of the system. As far as he was aware, she set his passport off, the fees off, and everything off.
Okay.
To the immigration people back then.
Right.
Back 10 years ago.
Right.
But he's only just found this out.
Right.
He separated from her about 6 years ago.
I understand. Right.
Like just like Islamic divorce, no court or anything like that.
But is he now quite sure that the indefinite leave to remain was never done for him?
It's 100%. I checked his passport.
All right. Okay.
I checked his passport.
I understand. Well, look, he is in some difficulty. The Home Office won't look at the fact that he relied on his wife to sort out the visa. They won't look at the fact that the marriage subsisted for 6 years, so potentially he did qualify for indefinite leave to remain. They won't look at any of that. They will take a very simple approach. He does not have he doesn't have any leave to remain. He's an overstayer. There are no children, so he is stuck, to be quite honest. For individuals, it's only when you've overstayed for 20 years, once you've lived in the UK for 20 years, that you get leave to remain. Other than that, what normally happens is whether he can qualify for some other kind of visa if he gets married again. Complex matter. We're going to be taking a short break. I'll address that as soon as I come back from our break. We'll be back in the next couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Free Legal Advice Show on British Muslim TV. I'm your host, Ilyas Bulbulia. To speak to me live on air, please ring on the landline number which appears at the bottom of the screen. Your call will be put through to me live on air and I can have a discussion with you in relation to any legal issues that you have. Alternatively, as always, a popular way of getting in touch is to send me a message on the mobile number, which also appears at the bottom of the screen. Now, just before the break, I do apologise to our caller who'd called in. I had to cut you short because we were going for a break. But the question that you put to me very clearly, and I managed to get all the relevant information from you, was that family member has been in the United Kingdom for 12 years, has realised that he is an overstayer at the moment, came on a spouse visa. Back in those days, 12 years ago, he would have qualified for indefinite leave to remain after 2 years. But for whatever reason, the indefinite leave to remain application doesn't seem to have been processed. The husband assumed it had. Now he's realized that it was never processed. Now, the difficulty that we have, and this is what I was explaining to our brother who'd called in, was that as far as the Home Office is concerned, this person is simply an overstayer. They won't look beyond that. So they won't look at what happened 12 years ago or 10 years ago. You know, the fact that they were living together, so he would have qualified for indefinite leave to remain. The fact that he seemed to have been misled as to whether the necessary application had been made or not. He was under the impression it had been made. The wife was obviously in control at the time, being the person who's from the United Kingdom, knows how things work, or knows slightly better than the husband, would just come to the UK as to how things work. So natural to leave it to the wife to sort things out. But it doesn't seem to have happened, really. The problem is the Home Office won't take all that into account. They will simply look at him as an overstayer. So he can't do anything. 20 years of overstaying, you can qualify for leave to remain. Alternative would be that if he gets married elsewhere and has a child that's British, that may open up another avenue. Got another caller waiting to speak to us, so let's go to that call. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Ji walaikum salam. Thank you, brother, for calling. What's your question?
Hello, hi. I got a question for you.
Okay. Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, basically, my spouse came in February this year.
Okay.
From abroad.
Okay.
So obviously, just want to know now, what's the next thing I have to do to make a permanent here?
Okay. So, sorry, who came from abroad? Is it your spouse? Did you say? Spouse.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I'm assuming she's got the 2.5-year visa at the moment to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the way the system works at the moment is that initially they're granted a 2.5-year visa. After 2.5 years, you have to apply for an extension of that spouse visa. So you apply for another 2.5-year visa. And it's only after 5 years that your wife qualifies for indefinite leave to remain. So the main thing you need to remember is, you know, in terms of what you did to sponsor your wife to come to the UK, you showed your finances, your wife passed an English test. What you've got to remember is you need to do something similar at the extension stage. So 2.5 years down the line, you'll be going through a similar process. You'll be showing your income again. The only difference is at that stage, you can include your wife's income if she is working as well. So you'll be meeting the 18,600 requirement again, you know, showing your income over 6 months. So you'll be doing that. Plus, in the same way that your wife met the English requirement at the outset, she'll be meeting another English requirement at the extension stage. Only difference is the English test that she will do will be at a slightly higher level. So they're the two main things you need to remember. There will be a financial requirement at the extension stage. There will be an English requirement at the extension stage. So, and then assuming that's all okay, she will get a 2.5-year visa again and then qualify for indefinite leave at the end. And that stage, at the 5-year mark, there are separate requirements then as well. Does that answer your question?
Okay, yeah. Okay, so basically she will be doing ESOL and GCSE English and Maths soon from September.
Right. The only problem
that will help.
That will help her in terms of learning English, but the qualification that she gets won't be accepted at the extension stage. So GCSE in English or any other subject, or ESOL, which is commonly done at colleges here, the qualifications that you get after you've done that course isn't an acceptable qualification for the extension. So she will still have to do the required test. A bit unnecessary, but that's the way it works. So even if he gets a GCSE in history, English, whatever, from the UK, they still won't accept that as evidence of one's ability to speak English. They will still require the person to do what they called an A2 test.
It's just one more thing. Will she be able to go abroad?
Yeah.
With obviously passport, which is not British.
Yeah. So she, in terms of going abroad, what you need to think of is one is absences. You know, if you're abroad for 2 months, 3 months, a year, it's fine. If she goes back to her home country, obviously it's not a problem at all. But what you've got to realise is that for certain countries, she may need to get a visa. So, for example, Europe. Now, you and I, with a British passport, we would obviously travel without a visa. We'd get visa on entry. But because she doesn't have a British passport, she has a passport, she has another nationality, and she's got leave to remain, she will have to obtain a visa before she travels to most other countries.
Okay.
So with every country, you need to look at the requirements.
All right.
Hope that answer is there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much for your call.
Okay.
A couple of interesting questions.
Okay.
Jazakallah. Thank you. Walaikum salam. Okay. Now, just going back to one of those questions which I've been trying to address from the outset today, which is the position of family members, relatives who may be in Afghanistan, who want to come to the United Kingdom, family members here who are keen to get their family members from abroad in Afghanistan to the UK. What is the position with them? Now, what I've said to client is that the reality is, the way you've got to look at it is, you look at each individual category and look at what the rules are which apply to them and what's in place in practical terms for them to come to the United Kingdom. First category is British citizens who are stuck in Afghanistan. As far as they're concerned, obviously there's no visa issues for them. They're British, they're allowed to come to the UK. But practical ways, I mean, how do they come to the United Kingdom? The Foreign Office has set up a dedicated line for them. There's a dedicated email address for them, so they need to notify the Foreign Office that they are still in Afghanistan wanting to leave. And hopefully, although the UK government has now left, or UK forces have now left Afghanistan, hopefully some arrangements will be made for British citizens who are still in Afghanistan wanting to leave. So there's no visa issue there. It's practical issues that arise in terms of how do you fly out? Are there going to be arrangements made for people still to fly out from Kabul, or is it the case that they need to go to another neighbouring country and fly out from there? But the key thing is, as far as they are concerned, they should be contacting the Foreign Office for guidance. The second category that we are having to deal with in practice is family members of British Afghanis. So it could be that somebody's children might be there, their wife might be there, their parents might be there. What's the position as far as they are concerned? Now, as far as they are concerned, we really need to wait and see what this scheme that the Home Office has been talking about will cover, because the Home Office has said that they will introduce a scheme whereby 20,000 people will be able to come to the United Kingdom. What will that scheme cover? Now, my understanding is that unfortunately it's not going to cover family members. My understanding is primarily it's going to cover those who assisted the UK government in Afghanistan. It's going to cover those who are at risk because they assisted the UK government, and other categories of very vulnerable people. There may be journalists, outspoken critics of the new government who are particularly at risk. Now, my understanding is that the new scheme that will be introduced by the government, which hasn't been introduced yet, will cover that category. As far as I am aware, at this stage, there is no category which covers general family members. It may be that certain family members could come into the UK under existing schemes, such as obviously spouses can come to the United Kingdom, children can be sponsored to come to the United Kingdom. Indeed, some of the children might be British. So they might fall into existing categories. But my concern is that this new scheme that's going to come in, which will be for approximately 20,000 Afghan citizens, my concern is that won't necessarily cover general family members. So it's not going to cover parents, brothers, sisters, uncles and aunts. It's really going to cover those who are, in the government's view, at risk, those who have assisted them or are generally at risk because of their particular circumstances or their activities, etc. So you've got a whole host of different categories. You've got British nationals who are obviously able to come to the UK, family members who may not qualify for leave to remain to come to the UK under the settlement scheme, and you're really having to look outside the scheme as to whether they are able to come to the UK. Then you've got those who are at risk, those who might have assisted the UK government. And I think it's for that latter category that this new scheme will come in, which will cover up to 20,000 people. So that's the current position with those who are in Afghanistan. As I said at the outset, we've had in practice numerous queries coming in on that. A lot of people have tried to contact their MP to find out what's going on. Problem is, a lot of people haven't managed to make much headway. They've not had much in terms of response back from their MPs either. But that's where we are, unfortunately. That brings us to the end of the show. Inshallah, we'll be back next week at the same time. Assalamu alaikum.